California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. We are coming to you from the Cannon House office building in Washington, D.C. It's my pleasure to introduce you to, if you don't know him already, Jeff Denham. He is a member of the United States Congress. Sir, you spent 8 years in Sacramento. You're now in your second term in the House of Representatives. Talk to me about the differences, the similarities.
Certainly, it's been very exciting to come to Congress. This wasn't something I was looking to do. But certainly an opportunity to represent not only my community, but I was somebody who served in the Gulf War, has served in Desert Storm and Somalia, and it's just a huge honor to be here and represent our entire nation. Big issues. So coming from California, state senate, dealing with budgets every year, the state budget dealing with the governor.
You were there during tough years.
Some very tough times,
no doubt.
And
no
now,
more surpluses back then.
No, and now much broader.
Right.
So not only are we dealing with the fiscal impacts of everything from our current budget and debt, but the entitlements, certainly Medicare, Social Security,
immigration,
and then all of the issues that affect me at home: immigration, jobs, getting our jobs, our national economy going, but also getting the local economy going. So really representing our community, but it's been very exciting.
And let's talk about immigration, which many see as an economic driver. When you think about immigration reform, it's an issue that seems to be driven by the Democratic Party. You are a member of the Republican Party, and yet many of your constituents, Republicans themselves, are getting strongly behind immigration reform. Many folks in ag, in the farming industry. Is that what you're hearing when you go home?
I hear from everybody at home.
No
I mean,
doubt.
this is an issue that affects everybody, but more than it being a jobs issue, it's a moral and ethical issue. I mean, because it affects so many people in our community. It affects my family. My wife was first generation, and you know, her father came over on the Bracero program, and you know, it has affected my family going through the same process.
It's so interesting you call it a moral issue, because rarely have I heard that from leaders. And in a lot of ways, many leaders may feel that because these are people.
Yeah.
You know, no matter what you think about the legality or illegality of their entrance, they are still human beings. That being said, though, for those Republicans that are looking to support immigration reform, and I say this with all due deference, the question of the economic impact is a powerful one. It is one that is seen as another reason to support the reform of our immigration laws. And so is that what you're seeing? Is that what you're hearing? Because I have to think, sir, you're under a tremendous pressure. The Republican caucus is nervous about immigration reform. You know, there are members from states that have, you know, virtually no immigrants, no ag to speak of.
Yeah, I think that the two biggest issues are an issue of fairness, making sure that we have a fair process that continues to allow immigrants from around the world to come to our country, so that the 11 million that are here undocumented today also have that same sense of fairness as they become legal residents. And an issue of security, making sure that we do this one time, we get it right. Not only do we address today's problem, but we make sure that our borders are secure, that we have a national ID program or an e-verify system so that everybody knows what jobs are available, and making sure that it's an economic driver as well.
But if you look at where the House is today, they have not proposed a comprehensive package. The Senate is looking toward that, but they have focused on e-verify. They focused on a guest worker program. So where does that leave the House, with the Senate looking for comprehensive reform, the House looking for more piecemeal reform?
First of all, I'd say that we were very close quite some time ago. There are a group of us that are working on a comprehensive package, but that group even started well before I came into Congress. There's also a separate effort to have each one of these individual items, and so we're going to have a real battle. Do we allow each of these individual items to come up by themselves,
when we come back,
or have a comprehensive one?
For our viewers on HLN, thank you for joining us. We'll be right back. Well, what's your sense, sir? Should we do it piecemeal, or should we do it comprehensive?
We absolutely have to have a comprehensive package that goes to the president. So what we conference between the House and the Senate will be the big question. So if we take it all up in one day, we could have several different bills that come up all in one day, but then leave the House as a comprehensive bill, even though it didn't leave committee. Because the comprehensive package still has to go through multiple committees as well.
What are your colleagues in the Republican Party, members of Congress, asking you Because I have to think that you've become a resource for them. They don't have ag in their district. They don't have large immigrant populations. I mean, you really do represent a unique Republican district. Most Republican districts, as we know, descend from European descendants. You know, they're descendants from Europeans.
Yeah, I mean, I've certainly had a lot of colleagues ask me about my approach in the district and how I'm doing things differently. For me, I've always been doing them the same. You know, I represent my entire community, and it's a very large Latino population. And so I speak fluent Spanish, as does my wife, and we go out and not only do radio and TV, but then we're talking within those communities, walking neighbor to neighbor, door to door. I need to know everybody's concern. But this time, I would say the one thing that is different is we've had these huge listening sessions or huge town halls, and rather than doing it in a civic center or a chamber of commerce or even a city council or a board of supervisors chambers, we're actually doing it in churches where people feel comfortable, where if somebody is here undocumented, they are willing to come out and tell us the challenges that they face and the fears that they have, whether it's with their children or with a spouse that may or may not be deported. Right. And because we're having it in that open forum, we're having one listening session had nearly 2,000 people show up, and so we're getting very diverse backgrounds.
Right.
And
so what does that do to you? I mean, how does that make you feel? You're the member. They're putting their hopes, their dreams before you. You can look into their eyes. It's got to be very powerful.
It is. It's an opportunity to change a multi-generational problem. Something that it's affected not only California, but our entire country for the last several decades. It's also a huge responsibility.
Right.
We've got to get this right.
In
We've got
1980s,
one chance to get it right, and it's such a broad set of issues that, again, it affects everybody.
Have you looked at the Gang of Eight proposal out of the Senate, and therefore have you taken a position on that piece of legislation?
I think they've had the right framework all the way through. I have had some concerns with some specific pieces of it, but overall, I think that there's, 90-95% of the issues in there that we can work with.
That says a lot. I
Yeah,
mean, the fact
we're
that
very,
you
very
are
close.
saying that says a lot. The question is, are other members of your caucus saying that?
No, I think certainly others have different concerns. Alaska, Iowa, South Carolina have different concerns than the Central Valley in California.
Right. What about the border? Because that is an issue that is so very important. We look at border security. It does appear that we have an increased number of border agents, that we have more fences along the border, especially since 1986, when we last tried this. Do you feel as if that the framework set forth in the Senate is adequate to allay the fears of those that are looking toward immigration reform but are nervous about the issue of border security?
I think that the precautions that are put in there are sufficient. My concern is with the timeline. That was one of the challenges that we had in the 80s when this was done, was certain aspects of the immigration policy were implemented and put in place and others weren't. We need to make sure that our border is secure, that we do have high-tech involvement,
right,
either with cameras or motion detectors, as well as having greater border security with more enforcement.
You mentioned the timeline. It's very wise to mention. As it's structured through the Senate version, after 5 years, if there is a sense that 90% of apprehensions have been made, those that were in the pipeline can apply for citizenship. If not, that citizenship is put on hold. What's your sense of the timeline set forth?
Again, I think that it is something that we're going to have to massage when it comes to the House. I mean, the important thing is going to have the two houses actually working in a bicameral, bipartisan fashion. This is not a Republican or Democrat issue. It's an American issue. We've got to solve this problem. We are a land of immigrants, and we need to start acting like one and put an immigration policy that works.
His name is Jeff Denham. He's a member of the United States Congress representing significant portions of the Central Valley. We are coming to you from the Cannon House Office Building in Washington, D.C. My name is Brad Pomerance. This is California Edition.
In 2012, how many individuals were apprehended for attempting to illegally cross the United States border from Mexico? The United States Border Patrol reported that nearly 357,000 tried to sneak across the U.S. border from Mexico.
This is California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. Thank you for joining us. Our guest, Sam Farr, member of the United States Congress representing the state of California. Sir, we thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Brad.
I want to speak with you about an issue that is very important to many Californians, and that's immigration reform. We know that your friends in the Senate have been working diligently to create a comprehensive bill. What's happening with your friends in the House?
Well, that's the big question. What's happening with our friends in the House, and particularly with our friends from California, particularly on the Republican side?
Right.
Because California is an interesting state. It's the one to benefit most from comprehensive immigration reform. And my district has the most number of undocumented farm workers in the United States.
And let's talk about that, because there is no doubt that when you look at the numbers in California, most of the farm workers, despite the fact there are special visa programs, are undocumented. As part of the Gang of Eight bill that we know, there is a special provision dealing with farm worker visas working through the Secretary of Agriculture. But when we look at the House side, and I believe that they are looking at a guest worker program, but would it look at the farm worker side?
Well, it'll have to, because California is the #1 ag state. It's what we produce is the healthy foods, all of the fresh fruits and vegetables.
Or the salad bowl of the nation.
Salad bowl of the nation.
So where do we go, though? Because look, there is a tremendous fear for supporters of immigration reform that a bill will get out of the Senate, it will be comprehensive, and it will move to the House and die.
The only bills that have passed in the last 2 years have been the Senate bills that have been brought to the House. You're right, they die on action, but then there's some conference committees established, and they end up in conference adopting most of the Senate provisions. So I think the pressure will be on, particularly our Republicans from California, whose districts, business interests, the farm, the ag, the farmers, the growers, we have an alliance between the farm workers and the farmers. This hasn't ever done before, for immigration. We have an alliance between the restaurant and restaurant employees. We have alliance between, it's labor and management in every category.
But is the pressure dramatic enough on the 15 remaining members of Congress from the Republican Party to buck what may be a very powerful lobbying effort amongst anti-immigration reform advocates?
The anti-immigration reform advocates make a lot of noise, but they have no votes. They have no votes. They just threaten and they scream, but they don't have, there's not a politic there.
And then if you think about your Republican friends that are not representing California, many of them, their districts are so, I'll just use the word gerrymandered, that they don't have any immigration reform advocates in their midst. I mean, very small minority populations, very small immigrant populations. It's not an issue that's important to them.
Well, one of the nice things about your program is that you're doing these interviews. Now remember, our contracts are up for renewal every 2 years.
They are.
It's not the leadership in Washington of your party. It's not the President of the United States. It's not the special interest groups that controls whether you get reelected. It's only the voters in your district. So you have to be loyal to the voters in your district, and that's why in this form of democracy that we have, it's really a bottoms up, and that is that if the people, the constituents, the workers, the employers, and I believe in California, it's in every district, care enough about immigration reform, then the entire California delegation will have to support it or they won't get reelected.
But what about outside California? That's the challenge. There are 15 Republicans that represent California who in the Congress, but beyond that, there are a lot of other Republicans.
Well, if California Republicans lead, so will others. You get legislators from like kinds of states, of Florida, New York, Illinois, Ohio, all the big states
Right.
who have the same interests. They'll come along, and you don't need all the Democrats or all the Republicans. You need enough of each.
When we come back, I want to speak about gun control, gun rights.
Right.
We're speaking with Sam Farr. For our viewers on HLN, we thank you for joining us. For our other viewers, we'll be right back. So, Congressman, as you know, California is known to have some of the strictest gun control regulations. That being said, there was a significant bill in the Senate known as Manchin-Toomey that would have done a series of things, including close what's known as the gun show loophole. A lot of excitement behind that bill amongst gun control advocates. It wound up not beating back a filibuster. What's your sense of the future of gun control?
Well, I think Harry Reid voted against that to put him in a position so that he can reintroduce the bill, and he could only do that by voting no. So there is an opportunity to bring it up again, and of course it depends on what happens in the districts of those senators up for re-election.
And it's interesting you mention that, because there have been a series of polls that have come out with regard to certain members. In Arizona, Senator Flake; in New Hampshire, Senator Ayotte; Republican members who have seen their numbers plummet since the bill was defeated by filibuster. Do you feel as if that the public pressure is great enough that at least in the Senate they can get past that 60 vote threshold?
Well, I use the Mothers Against Drunk Driving as a good example of where moms, angry and upset that the legislatures wouldn't respond, organized state by state, district by district.
Right.
And we have drunk driving reforms all over the nation because of them. So we can do the same thing with the angry
suburban soccer moms?
That's right.
At the same time, sir, you know, recently the National Rifle Association had its convention. And there's no doubt that when you heard the members speak from that podium, there was a lot of anger, a lot of enthusiasm. They felt reinvigorated by the fact they were able to defeat Manchin, Toomey. And so the question becomes, maybe the bill can get through the Senate, but as we said before, if we go to the House of Representatives, it becomes very difficult.
This is just a matter of time. These things will pass, but it's going to take a lot of hard work. We talk in politics about tipping points. We have 50 states. We have 218 members representing those 50 states that need to be a majority, of 435 total. So what happens, and you've seen it in California, you've seen it in New York, you've seen it in Illinois, where these state gun laws, and by the way, there isn't a single debate going on in Washington. It hasn't been the law in California for 25 years. This is something that happened after the Stockton shooting. We banned assault weapons.
And let's talk.
We banned magazines.
Right.
We banned, and we require gun locks and safety. And if you don't have your gun locked in your home, even though you own it, and something happens, you've got a liability. So there is tons of gun laws in California. People have lived with it. We have a lot of NRA members in California. They've lived with it. So I just don't know why they don't want to have these background checks. This has nothing to do with Second Amendment. This is sort of a fear factor. I don't like government, and therefore I'm going to use this as a demonstration of why we can't have government making any laws.
And you mentioned Stockton, which of course was the beginning of Californians' reevaluation of its gun laws. 5 children were killed as a result of the use of an assault weapon. We do have that assault weapons ban. Senator Feinstein from our state was able to get such a bill passed.
And we passed it under Bill Clinton.
Right.
I mean, when the gun lobby's saying they're taking away our rights, what about what they've taken away, which is the law of the land, which has banned assault weapons? All these federal laws we had in place and enacted under Clinton have been since sunsetted or repealed by the NRA. They're taking away the laws. They're not allowing us to pass those, reenact those same laws that have been the law of the land.
But when you look at assault weapons specifically, that bill was brought at the same time as Manchin Toomey, and it only got 40 votes in the Senate. I mean, that one seems to be the least popular amongst national senators. And so why is it that background checks seems to have some momentum, but assault weapons ban, it's going nowhere, sir?
Well, what I've learned in politics is that you can have a lot of money spent and a lot of noise here made in Washington and get on these national talk shows and everything. But it gets down to that election. And we've seen in California, and you mentioned Senator Feinstein, she had Mr. Huffington run against her and spend some $27 million. So money can't, and we saw Meg Whitman and others in the last election spend all kinds of money. Just money alone in elections is going to get elected. What gets you elected is grassroots democratic participation by people. So if this is enough working people and concerned people that these gun issues and immigration issues count, they will make that statement in the polls. And you'll see people lose office and new people get elected. You'll see the ability to empower communities. And I think the next decade is really about local empowerment. There's no money at state level. There's no money at the federal level. There's going to be answers at the local level.
He's Sam Farr. I'm Brad Pomerance. You're watching California Edition.
Under the FBI current background check system, how many individuals are barred from purchasing guns? The FBI's database lists 7.3 million individuals who are barred from buying guns.
Welcome to the nation's capital. We are coming to you from Washington, D.C. My name is Brad Pomerance. We are joined by Steve Horsford. He's one of the newest members of the U.S. Congress representing the state of Nevada, a huge district, a new district. Yes. Talk to us about your new job. You've been in the Nevada Senate for 8 years, Senate President for 4 years.
I'm very honored and privileged to be here as a new member of Congress. This is the 4th Congressional District, which covers 52,000 square miles. It's 7 counties. We cover everything from agriculture to mining, 4 military bases, Area 51 and the test site.
Yes, Pahrump.
And we have the base of a third of Las Vegas. So it's a very diverse district.
And let's talk about that district because Nevada has seen good times, seen tough times. Last few years have been tough for Nevada. High unemployment, high foreclosure rate. Talk to me about that, your constituents, what's happening?
Well, I was born and raised in Nevada, and so I have seen firsthand the impact during the boom years when we were the fastest growing state and economy in the country for more than 20 years. And unfortunately, during this sustained recession, the fact that we still have higher than acceptable unemployment, we lead the country in home foreclosures. And so, you know, I'm here because my constituents sent me here to fight for them, to fight for the middle class, the families who are struggling every day to get by.
And we think about your constituents, those families, many members of those groups, they may be legal immigrants, they may be undocumented immigrants, and they're looking to you with a lot of hope, a lot of fear when we look at immigration reform. What are they telling you, sir?
They're telling me to work together with my colleagues to fix what is a broken immigration system. And I'm very optimistic that this is a milestone, that in 3 decades we finally have an opportunity in a bipartisan way to work together to fix the system.
And I don't mean to be hyperbolic or pessimistic, but many folks thought that there was a perfect storm for gun control, gun reform. As we speak today, we didn't see that in the wake of Newtown. So I want to get a sense from you, should the advocates of immigration reform be optimistic in light of what happened with the gun control debate?
Well, yes, and the gun control debate and background checks, I think is still an issue that
one could argue
could be addressed. But on immigration, look, we have the Chambers of Commerce agreeing with the national labor organizations. We have farm workers and the ag industry agreeing. We have Republicans and Democrats working together to craft a bill for the first time in more than 3 decades.
But let's talk about those Republicans and those Democrats, because many of those Republicans and those Democrats are from the Southwest. They've been working on these issues for some time. But that may not be enough, especially in the House, to get immigration reform to march forward. How do you speak with members from either party who don't represent large immigrant communities, who don't represent ag or farm? This issue isn't important to them, and their voters say, this is amnesty.
Well, what I say is we all moved here from somewhere. And when we recognize that, you know, we're all immigrants and that this is a nation of immigrants, we want an immigration policy that works. And if we can focus on keeping our families together, holding employers accountable to only hire those who are authorized to work here, to strengthen and tighten our border security, and to provide an opportunity for an earned pathway to citizenship, then I think we can accomplish that together.
The Senate's moving forward. The House is submitting piecemeal legislation. Will they come together?
Well, the House is still looking at a comprehensive bill, and I'm hopeful that before the end of May we will have a bill that mirrors the Senate, and we'll work together from there to craft the best bill. Will it be perfect? No, but we can work together to get it done.
For our viewers on HLN, thank you for joining us. For our other viewers, we'll be right back. Congressman, you mentioned that your district includes significant military employers. We know that as a result of the sequester, that the military industries in our nation have been hit very hard. Because the sequester hit in March, we're going to see a 13% reduction in the defense industry, more than if the sequester continues. What are your constituents telling you that may work in the military on the civilian side or whatever it may be.
Well, at the Nellis Air Force Base,
Please.
which is the largest base in my district, there are 600 civilians who are or will soon receive furlough notices, which will amount to upwards of 20% cut in their pay between now and the end of the year. So this is real. And some, unfortunately, may lose their job altogether.
What do you say to them, especially when you saw a Congress come together to avoid furloughs of air traffic controllers because Congress members fly a lot, or for meat inspectors because the meat industry is powerful? I mean, I'm not advocating that. I'm not saying that's what I believe, but that's what people may feel.
I voted for the restoration of the FAA because I represent a tourist-based economy, and
Fair
we
enough.
need to keep our airports open, and it was the right thing to do, and it's the right thing for us to do to fix the entire effects of the sequester, including on the civilian part of our military, including on seniors and who
Meals
rely
on
on Meals
Wheels.
on Wheels, and my families who depend on the Head Start programs, all of whom are being affected by a poorly conceived sequester law that none of us believe should have gone into effect.
But what's so interesting to me is you would think that the Congress would come together, even if it's a Band-Aid, for the defense industry to avoid those furloughs. Why is that industry not in the sweet spot?
Well, to be clear, active military and our veterans
Yes, you
are
are
held
clear.
harmless.
You are clear.
It's the civilian side and the contracting portion that is at liberty of these cuts. And that's why I'm working and will work with anyone, regardless of party, to come up with a solution to fix the sequester. I believe it's bad policy and it should be replaced.
And I've heard that said by Democrats and Republicans, and we don't see movement. What we see is a lot of focus on immigration reform, which we understand, on gun control, healthcare, whatever it may be. But because the sequester, other than the FAA issue, hasn't hurt us so significantly as we may have expected when everyone said the sky would fall down, it's just not on top of mind.
Oh, it's hurting. It's hurting the senior in my district who relies on that Meal on Will program. It's hurting the family member who cannot go to work because they're now not going to get that Head Start slot that allowed that working mom to go back to work. So it's real. It's affecting us. And no, should more be done? Absolutely. And I believe that Congress should stay in session, that we should work around the clock if necessary to get that job done.
What about using this opportunity to really see bona fide reform, be it taxes, be it entitlements, be it a more prescribed way to attack our debt and deficit? Can we see the grand bargain that Mr. Obama, our president, is dreaming of?
I believe so in the long term. That the sequester needs to be fixed in the short term. In the long term, I am optimistic that the president's budget proposal, the Senate budget proposal, as well as the House Republican budget proposals are now out there. And now we have everyone's plans. Now it's time for us to come together and work towards that grand bargain that so many people talk about.
But here's what's interesting. I've spoken with other members about this. Because the economy is doing better, we see more tax receipts coming into the federal government. So the debt ceiling will actually expire much later than expected, maybe towards the end of the year. Then we get into an election season, and folks don't want to give the president a win or the Republicans a win.
It's not about the president. It's not about Republicans. This is about the American people. And they sent us here with a very clear message. Stop playing politics and get something done. And I can tell you among the freshman members, at least, the majority of us, we want to work together to get something done. We put partisanship aside. The elections are over. We're not focused on 2014. We're focused on helping the American people right now, and we know that's what they want us to do.
And I've spoken with other freshmen. I guess there's a caucus, No Labels. Have you heard this? What I wonder, though, and I mean, no disrespect, but you're freshmen. You got some leadership above you. Are they going to listen to you? Are they going to hear your hue and cry, almost 100 of you?
Well, we're home every weekend. We're talking to our constituents. We're the ones who are freshest off of being elected. And the message was very clear in my district and across the country. Get something done. Work together. Solve our problems. And that's why I'm here.
His name is Steve Horsford. He's a member of Congress from the great state of Nevada. My name is Brad Pomerance. Thank you so much for joining us.